by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
If you missed any of my opening segment, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card. Earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Hey, what's in your wallet? Also, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. 888-SAY-ESPN is 888-729-3776, 31 minutes past hour number one. Back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Listen, before I get to the calls, I need to revisit something that happened on my television show, First Take. Airs every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time, 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on ESPN television. And it involves Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner, two-time national champion, now a college football analyst extraordinaire for ESPN. He came on First Take, and he comes on at First Take every Friday, during the college football season. And he made a lot of head waves during his appearance on First Take Friday, because Tim Tebow is not a supporter or an advocate of college athletes being paid. If you recall, the state of California made news the other day. Their Senate, by a vote of 39-0, their state assembly, by a vote of 73-0, voted in favor for pay-for-play legislation that would allow collegiate athletes to make money off of their likeness, receive endorsement deals, things of that nature. And other states in the United States of America are expected to follow. Not all, but some. Nevertheless, people like myself, Max Kellerman, others are clearly in support of that, along with a bevy of African-American former athletes, NFL analysts, pundits, things of that nature, collegiate, folks that used to play collegiately, whether it be basketball or football, which is predictable. Well, Tim Tebow was not one of those people. Tim Tebow has absolutely no problem with individuals being supported or receiving some kind of support. But he didn't want to go as far as, quote unquote, paying the players, because he is an individual that is in favor of holding on to that amateurish tag, that tag of amateurism. Tim Tebow used an analogy talking about he was in college. He was a star in college. He was ultimately winning national championships, competing for national championships, winning a Heisman Trophy. At one point in time, his jersey was the number one selling jersey in the nation, and he never received a dime of it. School administrators did, the NCAA did, BCS, whomever you want to point the finger at. And he had no problem with it, he said. And as a result of that position, he was raked through the coals all weekend long. Millions upon millions of people chimed in, going off about Tim Tebow. And I want to sit up here and say this. Y'all need to stop. Y'all need to stop right now. I don't agree with Tim Tebow's position per se. As an African American, I have a different perspective. But that does not mean that I don't respect his position. He doesn't have a problem with amateurism. He's in love with the authenticity associated with amateurism. He pointed out how you have stadiums that seat over 100,000 and it's filled to capacity because people love what he alludes to being the purity and the sanctity of a sport. If you disagree with that, that's okay. But to turn around and castigate this man and to bring race into the equation as if he's some no good, you know what, shame on y'all. Now, Tim Tebow ain't the type of person that'll tell you to go to hell. I am. Because that's ridiculous. And by the way, know your background, know his background before you talk about it. People that talk about him coming from a privileged position. Do your research on Tim Tebow's background. Privileged is not what I would describe his background to be. what you're talking about when it comes to him. If you want to disagree with his position, whatever happened to saying why? And leaving it at that. See, that's the problem that we're living in today's day and age. It's not enough to disagree with somebody. You have to question their agenda, and you have to excoriate them and castigate them and rake them through the coals just because their position is different than yours. But we call ourselves in the Mosaic. We brag about this being the United States of America and freedom of speech. But somebody disagrees, and you can't just make an argument explaining why your point would disagree with theirs. Instead, you have to castigate this man. It's unnecessary and it's uncalled for. I want to reemphasize, I don't agree with Tim Tebow's position totally. But he made a profoundly strong argument on his own behalf, not to mention the fact that I thought it came from the right place. I just disagree with him. Because one of the things, and I want my white producers to look at me when I'm saying this, because as black folks, as minorities in this country, we need to address something that's very, very important. I think I've been working with Jonathan Winthrop for a long time. I've gotten to know my man JC for many years and other producers here and what have you, and folks that work within this country. You got some black folks here, you got some white folks here. I don't believe that you're a bad person because you disagree with me. Oh, by the way, let me take it a step further. I would totally understand if they don't. I would totally understand if they can't relate to my black experience. You know why? Because they're not black. This notion that everybody has to understand where we come from without being us, to me, is ill-informed. I said the same thing to y'all about the Kaepernick situation. I said the same thing to y'all about Jerry Jones when he was taking a position on the knee and all of this other stuff, and everybody was going to. I said, excuse me, I don't expect a white billionaire to have the same sensitivities, culturally or otherwise, than impoverished people from the minority community. That's not them. It's not who they are. Our objective should be identifying what our goals, what our agenda is, and going about the business of convincing them that it's in the best interest of their agendas to facilitate progress when it comes to us. Period. I don't expect a white billionaire to have the same experiences, culturally or otherwise, and thereby the same sensitivities, culturally or otherwise, as blacks or other minorities from impoverished backgrounds. Period. At some point in time, we got to grow up. And Tim Tebow is the latest example because you know something? He doesn't come from a privileged background. Do your homework on him. His position may be different than yours, but he is qualified to speak on those issues. He really, really is. The man played collegiate football on an elite level. He could have easily positioned himself to profit off of it and elected not to. Now, you can sit up there and say he's white, he wasn't as poor as a lot of blacks and other minorities that he played college football with, so he could afford to take that position. And that may be true. But it doesn't make him a scourge of the earth. I'm 51 years old. I've been around for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm much nicer than most of you realize, but I don't like too many people. I damn sure don't trust most. I just live my life and be on my way. There are very, very few people whose character I think most people can stand on a platform and rave about. Tim Tebow is one of those people. I'll never deviate from my position. He couldn't throw the damn football. Didn't belong to be a quarterback in the NFL, period. That's about the only thing I can say about him. One of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet in your life, whose soul and conscience is in the right place. Y'all can disagree until the cows come home, and that is your right. I disagree with him. But he didn't deserve to have his character stained and attacked all weekend long the way some people elected to do, just because he had a position that may have been different than yours. And those who did that to him should be ashamed of their damn selves. You really, really should. He truly deserved better than that. He really did. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. To your phone calls before Booger McFarland comes on to start off hour number 2. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back with Morning Minute. Here's the Select Quote term life insurance difference. Most companies give you one option, one policy, one rate. But Select Quote shops and